Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is popular astral projection questions answered. These questions come from one of my patrons, Remco De Lille, who supports Astral Club. And he had some great questions, and I thought that lots of people might benefit from the answers. So I figured I'd get into them. Before we do that, just want to mention Patreon. Nowadays, I've downloaded about 60 of the episodes. I do about 10 a week onto Patreon. So anybody who is a patron of Astral Club can access those podcasts on any podcast app that they have, and they can play it offline. There's no commercials, and there's, of course, an email where we can talk back and forth with advanced videos on Sunday. And if you're interested in supporting Astral Club and the work we do, the link is in the description. Next up, if you're interested in private astral projection lessons, whether you're experienced and like to do more interesting things, or whether you'd like to learn to astral project, be more than glad to send you information on the class. If you're interested in that, you'll find an email in the description where you can request more information. Okay, let's look at some of the questions that Remco De Lille asked. And I think many of you will probably be interested in a few of them. And at the end, remind me. Make sure you remind me. I want to mention that I just found out that there's something you don't want on your bed because it makes astral projection more difficult. So I want to cover that before this is over. Okay, first up, when astral projecting, do you see the world around you in a different color? Let's say a golden aura-like place. My answer to that is colors change based on the vibrational level of the astral subplane that you're experiencing. Early in many experiences, you are in the lower astral, just right above the physical plane. You'll see that blacks and grays predominate here. Now, as you rise higher, colors become brighter and more intense. In the higher astral, the colors appear to glow in an unearthly light. If you're aware of the work of illustrator Maxfield Parrish, you'll get a good idea of what those upper levels of the astral really look like from a just this heavenly, if I can use that word, heavenly glowing living light. I think of all the illustrators I can think of, Maxfield Parrish probably captured it the best, at least in my experience. Next up, number 2. Let's say you astral project in your living room. Is everything the same, or is it in the astral different? For example, he says, in the astral, I had a glass table standing there, but in real life, i.e., the physical, this table had not stood there for many years. My answer is the astral plane is a different reality from the physical. And I think that's probably one of the most misunderstood truths of people who are new or are unaware of the true nature of astral projection and the astral plane. When you're traveling in the astral, you're no longer in the physical plane. You are now above that plane. Now, if you're in the lower astral, what happens essentially is, and this is a little poetic, but it's the best way I can think to describe it, is that the shadows of the physical are cast upon the lower astral. If you've ever been outside in the summer and you've seen your shadow or a building shadow cast upon the street, you'll be able to recognize that it's you or that it's the building, but you'll see that it's a little off. that's what happens many times in the lower astral. Now, the laws of time, though, start falling apart once we progress in the astral. For an example from my own experience, I've seen my parents' old furniture from the past a number of times when I astral projected. The past, present, and future is an illusion. It exists as a powerful illusion on the physical plane. But once you get on the astral, you start spending time there, you find out that the past, present, and future is not quite as set in stone as you thought it was on the physical plane. To give you another example, this time of seeing the future, my brother was a skeptic. It's his nature. And despite the fact, of being, him being my brother for many years, he still had doubts about my astral projections capabilities. So he thought up of a test. And this was back in the days. I was 18. I was still looking at testing things. Nowadays, I really don't care. I have information. If you wish to partake of it, great. If you don't, that's fine too. If you want to experiment proving it to yourself, knock yourself out, I'm way past that at this point. But to get back to my original story, my brother wanted to test me. He said, I'm going to put an object in my basement on top of the table that he had in his basement. And he wanted me to project and then tell him what it was. I agreed. I was certainly very familiar with his basement. I had been in there many times. And so that night I projected and I saw what I saw. And the next day I called him up and told him that you have an old Russian samovar on your table. Well, first of all, he started laughing. And then he said, I don't even know what the fudge, and he didn't say fudge, for those of you who are fans of A Christmas Story, what you're even talking about. I don't even know what a samovar is. Well, a samovar is something that a lot of it goes back to pre-Bolshevik days in Russia. And richer people would have quite often silver samovars. They were fairly large tea-making machines that would allow you to pour the tea and it would keep it hot for a good long period of time. Most Americans had no idea. It's just I studied Russian literature as part of the things I was interested in college. So I had encountered the samovar and what it was and what it looked like. So we left it at that. 2 years later, I went to my brother's house to visit him, and he wanted to show me some stuff that he'd picked up at a yard sale. So we went downstairs, and there on his table was that Russian samovar that I had seen 2 years prior. And I said, that's the samovar. He said, oh, is that what it is? He said he'd gotten it from the old guy down the street whose wife had passed and he was moving to a small condo in Florida. And he was getting rid of a lot of stuff. And apparently my brother took it thinking that maybe his wife, who was an artist, could do something with it. Turns out she couldn't, so it was sitting on his table in the basement. So here we are. I've seen things that existed in the past when I was projecting, and I've seen things that would not happen for another few years. So that's some of the things that you have to deal with. So when people project, if they don't realize some of these facts, like just how murky the whole idea of time can be in the astral versus the physical, that people make many judgments that, well, I saw this in my room when I projected, so thinking that the astral for some reason has to be an exact copy of the physical, they then discard their projection as a dream or as fake, because after all, what they saw in the astral didn't exactly conform to their physical. And why should it though? It's a different plane. And certainly anyone who's astral projected and progressed up the astral subplane have seen very, very different realities. Things get progressively very different as you go higher and higher in the astral, and there's less and less of the physical around anymore. Number 3, how is it that some people do not see their own physical bodies when they astral project? Now, I always tell people, don't hang around trying to look in mirrors or trying to look at your physical body, because if you do, you're risking being pulled back again. Because there's not only a strong gravitational pull, but if you're staring at your body for too long, then the automated self-defense system that controls how long you can stay out might assume you went back in again because you're looking at the physical body. So it pulls you back in again. But I've glanced a number of times myself. Sometimes I see myself there with my mouth open in the bed, looking bizarre. Other times I don't. I see an empty bed. Now, there's a couple things at work here. Whether you see your physical body or not depends on 2 things. First of all, you may be at a different energy level now, and this particular energy level may not allow you to see your physical body. But another explanation that I've often seen is that if you may have shifted in time when you left your body. I have left my body numerous times in the middle of summer only to see snow outside. So time is very fluid. So perhaps when you're looking back, you're looking now at a time in the physical where you're not in bed, which is a good explanation as to why you don't see your physical body. But it's another reality you need to be aware of, because I can't even count how many people have discarded the idea that they successfully astral projected because they happened to glance back and did not see their physical body. So I hope that helps some people out there who might have discarded past experiences because they misunderstood that particular fact. Next up, number 4, he asked, do you sometimes dream of astral projection without actually astral projecting? When I was a child, this did occur. Flying dreams in particular can be confusing if you're not very experienced in astral projection in particular. The big determinant for me that I figured out was to think back to the situation that I wasn't sure was a dream or astral projection. And I would think back to what I was thinking at the time. When you're dreaming, you typically have what I call truncated dream memory. In other words, when you're dreaming, the subconscious has taken over and you no longer have complete access to conscious memories, or at least all of your conscious memories. Many of my dreams, flying or otherwise, take place in situations where I'm back at college, for instance, which was a very formative time for me, very key area in my life. When I was younger, if I was in high school, I might think I was in middle school, what have you. The idea being, though, that you're in this dream, and even if it does become lucid, I find that you're still operating in a truncated dream situation where you don't have your full memory. When you astral project, you will find that you will have your complete conscious memories right on up to the time you fell asleep. And if you think about it, you can look through your hands. In a dream, if you try looking at your hands, you'll see some weird things, but you won't usually see through them. But it's the truncated memory that really, for me, is the key determining factor. When you had this experience, did you think you were back in college and now you're 40? Okay. Or did you have a complete conscious memory like typically in an astral projection? The level of reality in astral projection is head and shoulders above any dream or any lucid dream that I've ever experienced. Number 5, and this is something that concerns people. How do you know during astral projection, if your guardian angel, higher self, guide, what have you, how do you know that they are legitimate, that they are here to help you, and that you're not being tricked by some entity? For most of my beginning projections, all throughout my childhood, until I got into college, it never even occurred to me to try to summon a guide to assist me. I always, as a kid, I just started doing it on my own, and I just continued to do so. It never occurred to me to try to, summon or ask for help from any other being. I just figured things out for myself. But many folks are aware now that there are such things as guides, higher selves, guardian angels, call them whatever you like. But they're a little worried. I mean, could they be deceived? Well, I like to say as above, so below. How do you detect whether or not to trust someone in the physical? Well, there is no exact test, is there? However, you can use your experience, your intelligence, your common sense, and also that little thing called your gut instinct. That's how you do it on the astral. Let's be honest, a very advanced being could easily deceive a new projector. It's most definitely possible. I've taken on the forms of a lost spirit's loved one at times because I sensed they needed that forgiveness from this loved one so they could move on, so they could leave this lower astral hell that they find themselves mired in. And I know that's a mild act of deception, but this person is suffering. And if that's what I have to do to help them to leave this black grayish hell that they're trapped in, well, then that's what I'm going to do, because it's the greater good at this stage of the game. But in the end, the best way to make that judgment is how do you feel based on their words and advice? Do they make sense to you? Do they ring true with your moral code? If they're problematic, if they cause fear in you, or worry, or insecurity, then I would be very careful about having dealings with that type of an entity. Because when you're dealing with these higher beings, you are bathed in a very, very positive, life-affirming energy. And their words ring true like the purest ring of a fine bell. That's the best advice that I can give. Unfortunately, there is no foolproof way, either on the physical or the astral. But you can judge people by their words and by, even more importantly, by their actions. So try to keep all that in mind. I hope you found this enlightening. If you liked it, please hit the like button, share it with those of like minds. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure that bell is on all so you get notified every time Wednesday afternoon and the Sunday or Saturday morning episodes are released. And I'm very interested in your questions and comments and experiences. Oh, I almost forgot. Sorry. Don't use polyester, nylon, or any artificial type fabrics on your bed. I got a gift for Christmas, and the sheets are really kind of cool. They definitely kept me warmer, but I found it was more difficult to project because of these unnatural fabrics. I'm always used to cotton. Everything's cotton. My clothing's cotton. The bed linen's cotton. And there's something about those natural fabrics that make astral projection easier. The artificial blankets didn't necessarily stop me, but it made it more difficult. They were clingy in a certain way. So, yeah, don't use artificial materials on your bed. That's a hint from me. Anyway, I'm glad you reminded me. Anyway, this is Rick, and as always, I will see you on the astral plane.